The diver came back from the sea terrified. It was the year 1900. A storm had forced a crew of Greek sponge divers to take shelter near the small island of Antikythera between Crete and the Greek mainland. One of the divers descended into the dark water wearing a heavy canvas suit and a copper helmet. The seafloor was far below, cold, dim, difficult to see. Then he saw shapes in the darkness, bodies, arms, legs, horses, human forms scattered across the bottom of the sea. When he returned to the surface, he told the others he had found a field of corpses, but they were not corpses, they were statues. Bronze and marble figures from an ancient shipwreck, lying in the dark for almost 2,000 years. The wreck would become one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made in Greek waters. Divers brought up statues, glassware, coins, luxury objects, and fragments of a lost ancient world. But one of the most important objects did not look important at all. It was a corroded lump of bronze and wood, green, broken, crusted by the sea. Compared with the statues, it looked almost worthless, so it was stored away. Then in 1902, something changed. The corroded object cracked open. Inside, an archaeologist saw something that should have made no sense: tiny gear teeth cut into bronze. Not one gear, a system of gears, a machine that had been lying inside an ancient shipwreck. This object would become known as the Antikythera Mechanism, and at first many people could hardly believe what they were looking at. Because gears of this complexity were not supposed to appear in the ancient world, at least not according to the history people thought they knew. The Antikythera Mechanism did not come from the future. It was not alien technology. It was not proof of a lost modern civilization. The truth is more interesting. It was an ancient Greek machine built more than 2,000 years ago that used bronze gears to model the movements of the heavens. It tracked the sun, the moon, eclipse cycles, calendars, the phases of the moon, and perhaps even the movements of the known planets. It is often called the world's oldest known analog computer. That phrase needs care. It was not a computer like the one on your desk. It had no electricity, no screen, no software, and no digital memory. It was a hand-powered mechanical calculator. A user turned a crank, and the gears inside moved dials and pointers across the face of the machine. It was a model of time made from bronze, a small box that turned ancient astronomy into motion, and that is why it still feels so unsettling. The Antikythera Mechanism does not prove that ancient people had modern technology. It proves something stranger. They had knowledge and craftsmanship that later disappeared so completely that, for centuries, no one knew how much had been lost. To understand the machine, we have to go back to the wreck. The ship sank sometime around 70 to 60 BCE. It was a Roman-era cargo ship, likely carrying Greek luxury goods across the Mediterranean. The cargo included statues, fine objects, and treasures from the Hellenistic world. The mechanism was found inside that wreck, but the device itself was Greek in design, language, mathematics, and astronomy. It likely dates to the late 2nd or early 1st century BCE. That places it in the Hellenistic world, a period when Greek science, astronomy, mathematics, and engineering had reached extraordinary levels. This matters because the machine was not a random miracle. It came from a world of observers, mathematicians, craftsmen, instrument makers, and astronomers, a world shaped by Greek geometry, Babylonian sky records, mechanical skill, and the need to understand time, festivals, calendars, and the movements of the sky. The ancient Mediterranean was not simple. It was full of trade, war, scholarship, conquest, and exchange. Ideas traveled. So did objects, so did machines. The Antikythera Mechanism was probably one of those elite objects, rare, expensive, and difficult to make. It may have been a teaching device, a display of knowledge, a luxury instrument, a tool for predicting astronomical events, or all of those things at once. What survives today is incomplete. The machine was broken into fragments, only part of it remains. But those fragments are enough to show that it was far more advanced than anyone expected. The mechanism was about the size of a small box, roughly the size of a thick book or shoebox. It had a wooden case, bronze plates, dials on the front and back, pointers, inscriptions, and a system of interlocking bronze gears inside. Around 30 gears survive. The original machine may have had more. Some estimates suggest 37 or more gears in total, depending on the reconstruction. The gear teeth were hand-cut, small, precise, packed into a very limited space. A user would turn a crank or a knob on the side. That motion would drive the gear system inside. The front display likely showed the position of the sun and moon against the zodiac. It also showed the Egyptian calendar. A small rotating ball probably displayed the phases of the moon, half light and half dark, turning as the lunar cycle changed. On the back were spiral dials. One tracked the Metonic cycle, a 19-year cycle that helped align lunar months with solar years. Another tracked the Saros cycle, about 18 years and 223 lunar months, used to predict eclipses. There was also an Exeligmos dial which helped correct the timing shift in eclipse cycles. Another dial tracked a 4-year cycle of major athletic games, including the Olympic Games and other Pan-Hellenic festivals. This means the machine was not just telling someone where the sun was, it was connecting the sky to human life. Calendars, festivals, eclipses, cycles of time, religious events, athletic games, the rhythm of the heavens and the rhythm of society were built into the same machine. To a modern viewer, that can sound abstract, but imagine holding this object in the ancient world. You turn the crank, the moon moves, the sun advances, a calendar cycle turns, an eclipse warning approaches, a game cycle comes into view. The machine does not only tell you the time, it lets you move through time, forward, backward, month by month, year by year. The heavens respond to your hand. That is what made the Antikythera mechanism extraordinary. It transformed astronomical knowledge into a physical experience. Ancient astronomers had known many cycles of the sky. They could predict eclipses using long observational patterns. They understood lunar months, solar years, and calendar relationships. But the Antikythera mechanism did something different. It placed those patterns into gears. It made mathematics move. One of the most remarkable examples is the moon. The moon does not move across the sky at a perfectly steady speed. Ancient astronomers knew this. The mechanism appears to have modeled that irregular lunar motion using a clever gear arrangement, often described as a pin and slot system. The basic idea is that one gear was offset, and a pin moved within a slot on another gear. As the gears turned, the motion varied instead of staying perfectly even. That allowed the machine to imitate the moon's changing speed. This is one of the clearest reasons the mechanism shocked researchers. It was not only counting days, it was modeling complexity. It showed that ancient engineers could turn astronomical theory into mechanical design. Still, we need to be careful with the strongest claims. Some reconstructions suggest the front of the machine may have displayed the movements of all 5 planets known to the ancient Greeks: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Inscriptions support the idea that planetary motion was part of the device's purpose. Modern researchers have proposed detailed models for how that may have worked, but the front gear work is heavily missing. That means planetary displays are likely or strongly suggested, but still partly reconstructed. A historically safe script should not say every planetary function is fully confirmed in the same way as the eclipse and calendar dials. The better wording is this: the machine clearly tracks solar and lunar cycles, lunar phases, eclipse cycles, calendars, and games. It likely included planetary displays, but that part depends on reconstruction because key pieces are missing. That careful distinction matters. The Antikythera mechanism is already incredible without exaggeration. It does not need aliens. It does not need impossible claims. It does not need to predict everything perfectly. It only needs to be what it was. A 2,000-year-old Greek machine with bronze gears that modeled the sky. That alone is enough to rewrite expectations. For decades after its discovery, researchers struggled to understand it. The object was too corroded to inspect easily. Its fragments were fused, damaged, and fragile. Some early scholars suspected it might not belong to the wreck at all. Maybe it was a later clock that had somehow fallen into the same area. Maybe it was medieval. Maybe the gears were not as old as the statues around it. That skepticism is understandable. Before the mechanism was understood, the history of complex gearing seemed to point much later. Large mechanical clocks in medieval Europe appeared more than 1,000 years after the Antikythera mechanism was built. So when a device with complex bronze gears emerged from a 1st century BCE shipwreck, it created a problem. Either the object was not ancient, or the timeline of ancient technology was incomplete. Modern research slowly solved the mystery. In 1902, Valerio Stais recognized gear teeth in the corroded fragments. That was the first major turning point. Later, Derek de Solla Price, a physicist and historian of science, spent years studying the mechanism. In the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, Price helped establish that this was not a simple object or a later intrusion. It was an ancient geared astronomical calculator. X-ray and gamma-ray imaging revealed gears hidden inside the fragments. Suddenly, the machine was no longer only a strange lump. Researchers could see into it. They could map gears, count teeth, trace relationships. The hidden structure began to appear. Michael Wright later built influential reconstructions and studied the device in 3 dimensions. He helped show how some of its more complex mechanisms may have worked, including lunar phase and planetary displays. Then, in the 2000s, the Antikythera Mechanism research project brought new imaging technology to the fragments. Micro-focus CT scanning and advanced surface imaging revealed details no one could see with the naked eye. Hidden inscriptions emerged. Thousands of Greek characters became readable. The inscriptions mattered because they were not decoration. They acted almost like a manual. They described cycles, displays, and astronomical information. The machine was beginning to speak again, not clearly, not completely, but enough. With every scan, the object became less impossible and more impressive. It was not a mystery because it defied history. It was a mystery because history had lost the tradition that made it possible. The deeper question is not whether ancient people could build it. They could. The question is why so little like it survived. Bronze was valuable. Old machines could be melted down. Workshops disappeared. Books were lost. Ships sank. Wars destroyed collections. Knowledge passed through fragile human chains, and those chains can break. The Antikythera Mechanism may be the only surviving example of a broader tradition of Hellenistic mechanical astronomy. Ancient writers mentioned devices that modeled the heavens. Cicero wrote about mechanical spheres associated with Archimedes and Posidonius. Those accounts suggest that the Antikythera Mechanism may not have been a one-of-a-kind miracle. It may be the only survivor. That possibility makes the story darker. If there was one machine, there may have been others. If one survived by accident, how many vanished? How many were melted for metal? How many were destroyed in wars? How many sat in workshops whose names are gone? How many traditions disappeared before anyone thought to preserve them? This is why the machine matters beyond archaeology. It changes how we think about progress. People often imagine technology as a straight line, primitive tools, better tools, machines, modern science. But history does not always move that way. Knowledge can advance, then break. A craft can reach a high point, then disappear. A machine can be built, then lost. A civilization can understand something deeply, and centuries later, other people may have to rediscover the path from almost nothing. The Antikythera Mechanism is a warning against assuming the past was simple. It shows that ancient knowledge could be precise, mathematical, and mechanical. It also shows how easily that knowledge could be buried. In this case, literally buried beneath the sea. Who built it remains unknown. Some theories connect it to Rhodes, a major center of astronomy and learning. Others point toward Corinthian colonies, Syracuse, Epirus, or other parts of the Greek world based on calendar evidence and astronomical clues. Some people mention Archimedes because ancient sources describe him creating mechanical models of the heavens, but there is no direct proof that Archimedes built the Antikythera Mechanism. He died more than a century before the wreck sank. The safer idea is that the machine may belong to an intellectual tradition connected to the kind of work associated with Archimedes, Hipparchus, or Posidonius, but the actual maker is unknown. That unknown maker may be one of the most haunting parts of the story. Someone cut those gears, someone knew the astronomical cycles, someone designed the casing, someone engraved the instructions. Someone understood how one turn of a crank could move many different displays at once. That person or workshop created one of the most complex machines to survive from antiquity, and their name is gone. We know the machine better than we know the maker. We can scan the bronze, we can count the teeth, we can reconstruct the dials, but we cannot ask the craftsman why it was made. Was it a teaching instrument? A luxury object? A philosophical model of the cosmos? A practical calendar tool? A prestige item for a wealthy Roman patron? A piece of Greek knowledge being carried west? The shipwreck gives hints, not answers. The vessel carried valuable goods. The mechanism was among them. Then the ship went down. A storm, a navigation mistake, a violent sea. Whatever happened, the result was the same. The cargo sank. The statues fell into darkness. The machine broke apart. The tradition it represented would eventually fade from memory. For almost 2,000 years, the Antikythera Mechanism waited at the bottom of the Aegean. No one turned its crank, no pointer moved across the zodiac, no eclipse dial advanced, no lunar phase changed. The machine built to model time was trapped outside of time. When divers found it, they did not know what they had recovered. When scholars first saw it, they struggled to believe it belonged. When modern machines scanned it, the ancient machine began revealing itself piece by piece. That is the strange beauty of this story. A modern scanner looking inside an ancient computer. A machine from our age reading a machine from theirs. Layer by layer, the corrosion gave up details. A gear tooth, a dial mark, an inscription, a hidden mechanism, a calendar name, a cycle of the moon, a warning of an eclipse. And each piece made the past more complicated. The Antikythera Mechanism should not be treated as proof that ancient people were secretly modern. It is proof that they were fully ancient and far more capable than later assumptions allowed. They did not need electricity to compute. They did not need screens to display information. They did not need digital code to model cycles. They used bronze, geometry, observation, ratios, craft, memory, and a hand crank. They built a small machine that made the cosmos move. That is why the phrase "shouldn't exist" works only if we understand it correctly. It does not mean the machine was impossible. It means it survived from a world where almost nothing like it survived with it. It means it appeared in the archaeological record like a sentence torn from a missing book, a single page from a lost library of machines. The Antikythera Mechanism did not break the laws of history. It exposed a gap in them. It showed that human knowledge can be much higher than the evidence that survives. And it showed that when evidence disappears, entire chapters of human achievement can look impossible. Even today, after more than a century of study, the machine is not fully solved. Some parts are missing, some displays remain debated. The planetary system is still partly reconstructed. The builder is unknown. The workshop is unknown. The owner is unknown. The exact reason it was on the ship is unknown. But uncertainty does not make the object weaker, it makes it more human. We rarely inherit the past complete. We inherit fragments, a broken gear, a damaged inscription, a corroded plate, a story written by someone centuries ago. A machine with most of its body missing, still able to change what we think we know. That is the power of the Antikythera Mechanism. It forces a different question. Not, how could ancient people possibly make this? But, how much more did they make that we will never find? If one machine survived by accident, what disappeared on purpose? What was melted down? What burned? What sank? What was never written down? What was written down and later lost? What workshop knowledge died with the last person who knew it? The ancient world was full of fragile things: papyrus, wood, wax tablets, bronze that could be reused, ships that could sink, libraries that could burn, craft traditions that depended on teachers and apprentices. When those chains broke, the future inherited silence. The Antikythera Mechanism is one place where that silence cracked. Through it, we hear the sound of lost gears turning. Not literally, not anymore. But in the imagination, the machine still moves. A crank turns, the sun advances, the moon changes phase, an eclipse approaches, a game cycle returns. Bronze teeth mesh in the dark. A model of the heavens fits inside a wooden box. Then the ship sinks, the machine breaks, the sea closes over it, and the knowledge behind it waits nearly 2,000 years to be noticed again. That is why this object matters. It is not only the oldest known analog computer, it is not only an archaeological wonder, it is a reminder that progress is fragile. A civilization can build something extraordinary, then lose the path that led there. A machine can survive, but its world can vanish. The Antikythera Mechanism was not a machine from the future, it was a machine from the past, and that may be the most disturbing part. Because if the past could build something this advanced and still lose it, then history is not a straight climb upward. It is a chain, and chains can snap. Somewhere in the dark water near Antikythera, a broken machine waited long enough to prove that the ancient world had been underestimated. It did not come back complete, it came back damaged, silent, corroded. But it came back with gears, and those gears were enough. Enough to reopen a lost chapter of engineering. Enough to show that ancient knowledge reached further than people believed. Enough to turn a shipwreck into a warning. The Antikythera mechanism should not exist only if we imagine the past as simple. Once we see the past clearly, it becomes something else. Not impossible, not supernatural, not alien. Something better. A human machine built by human hands, lost through human history, found by accident, and still asking the same question more than 2,000 years later. How much have we forgotten?